When was the last time someone talked honestly about the financial side of raising a child with complex needs? If someone had told me years ago that one of the biggest tools for reducing stress in our home was not the therapies or the appointments, I probably would have laughed. Because when your son can't be in school and one parent needs to stay home full time, it changes everything. Today, I'm sharing the difficult decision that changed our family's finances forever and the practical things we did to not only make one income work, but create a little more calm in the middle of the chaos. If you're tired of feeling helpless during your son's meltdowns and isolated by the stress it brings to your family, and you want simple steps to open communication, reduce outbursts, and bring more peace to your home, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Cynthia, wife and boy mom. I remember having a child who looked typical, but spent hours falling apart at home. I learned how to stay confident during the stress of meltdowns and build connection without resorting to heavy-handed parenting. If you're ready to reduce the meltdowns and aggressive behavior and finally see that what you're doing is actually helping, then grab my hand. I am the mom you've been waiting to meet. If you're feeling overwhelmed by meltdowns, school refusal, aggression, or you're struggling to know what to do next, my 60-minute coaching call is designed to help you create a clear path forward with personalized support for your unique family. In our 60-minute call, we'll uncover what's really going on beneath your son's behaviors so you can move from feeling powerless and frustrated to calm and reassured. If you're tired of second-guessing and wondering what to do next, I have a few openings for one-to-one meltdown roadmap sessions. Email me at info@cynthiafair.com to reserve your spot. There was a season when my son could no longer attend school. The school refusal had become so severe that we were receiving letter after letter from the school district about his absences. The resources simply weren't there to support him. And after many difficult conversations, my husband and I realized we had reached a crossroads. Around that same time, I had applied for a job, received an offer, accepted the position, and signed all the paperwork. Then I had to make one of the hardest phone calls ever. I felt silly and embarrassed, but I called them back and declined the job. Financially, that income would have made a tremendous difference for our family. We could have really used it, but without my son in school, working was no longer an option. One of us needed to be home. Maybe you've been there too. Perhaps you've reduced your hours, left your career, turned down opportunities, or wondered how you're going to make ends meet while trying to support your son through meltdowns, school refusal, aggression, or separation anxiety. This episode isn't directly about changing behaviors, but it is about something many of us quietly face because of those behaviors. How do you survive financially when your child needs you at home? I certainly don't have all the answers, but I can share what helped our family the most. One of the first things we started doing was meal planning. At first, I thought it was simply going to save us money on groceries, and it did, but what surprised me was how much stress it removed from our day. When life already felt chaotic, I no longer had to stand in front of the fridge at 4 o'clock wondering what I was going to make for supper. I simply looked at our monthly plan and made what was written down. But the biggest difference? It stopped one of the questions I heard over and over again. Mom, what are we having for supper? Instead of asking me several times a day, my son could simply walk over and look at the calendar. And because I asked him to choose some of his favorite meals so we could include them into the schedule, he was excited for the meals and far less likely to complain. It became one less decision for me and one less uncertainty for him. Another thing that really helped us was buying secondhand whenever we could. We became regular shoppers at secondhand stores for clothing, toys, books, and household items. Of course, it saved us money, but there was another benefit I never expected. The stores were smaller. There weren't endless aisles and hundreds of choices overwhelming both of us. And when it came to clothing, there was an added bonus I hadn't even considered. Because the clothes had already been washed many times, they were softer. For a little boy with significant sensory issues around certain fabrics, this made a huge difference. We often found quality clothing that he was actually willing to wear for a fraction of the price. I also want to encourage you to ask for help. Research what's available where you live, because you may never know unless you apply. Check community bulletin boards at your local health clinic, library, or school. Look at provincial, state, and federal government websites. Ask other parents. Ask your doctor. Some of the supports we were able to access here in Canada included home improvement programs, free gym memberships for our son, with reduced rates for parents, swimming passes, family health benefits like chiropractic care, disability grants, respite support, and more. Not everything applied to us, but enough of it did that it made a real difference. Making our own household products actually began long before we were trying to save money. My son's skin was incredibly sensitive. Even the slightest fragrance could irritate his skin, and sometimes simply smelling certain products would trigger a reaction. We had to switch almost everything to unscented, and back then those products weren't always easy to find. So I started making things myself. Laundry detergent cost a few dollars to make. Cleaning products were simple ingredients. Hand wipes became another easy homemade option. Not only did it save money, but I also didn't have to worry about strong chemicals sitting under the kitchen sink. And this brought me so much peace. Little by little, those choices added up. And here's something I want you to remember. None of this was about deprivation or scrimping. It was about making decisions that matched the season our family was in. When you know why you're making sacrifices, they begin to feel less like you're missing out and more like intentional choices. As you go, you'll see the results it produces. That shift alone can reduce so much stress because your spending begins to reflect your priorities instead of your frustration. If you're walking through a season where you've had to put your career on hold, reduce your income, or completely rearrange your family's finances because your son needs you more than ever, I want you to know this. You are triumphant. You are good at making difficult decisions with the resources you have today. This season won't necessarily look like every season, but right now you're doing what your family needs. This isn't about skimping. It's choosing what's best for your son and your family, and then making decisions that are in alignment with that. And little by little, you begin to see the results, not only in your finances, but in the peace it brings to your home. Hey Mama, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be on an uphill battle with her son's unique challenges? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It lights me up to know this podcast is helping you. All right, time to breathe and know that you have everything inside of you to courageously raise your brilliant son. I'll meet you back next week for another episode. Bye.